I worked at several different jobs from the time I got out of high school until I was 21. And then a good friend of mine talked me into going to college. And probably partied a little more than I should have, because after the second year, they didn't ask me back. So fall of 1965, when I didn't go back, I got my draft notice. I'll never forget that. Vietnam War was starting to pick up pretty good now. You could tell it was not just a little police action. Those guys were crazy. They'd sit there, they'd have a belt around their waist. They'd hang out the door, shoot trees, shoot anything they wanted to shoot, seems like. They had what they called military script over in Vietnam, where they chose how much they wanted to save, and the Army held that back, but otherwise they were paid every month. And I remember counting out $50-some thousand, and then on payday, these guys would get in line and you paid all the non-coms first. And if he had $126.17 coming, he got $126.17. And you paid them one at a time. In that company, it might be 75 guys that you had to pay. Then you had the 4 or 5 other officers that you had to pay. Then you hopped on a helicopter after you got them done, and then you went out to the field, and we had 23 signal sites. Then you had to go down to Saigon and pay them. It took 4 or 5 days to pay everybody, and that was just like an extra job for a commissioned officer. My main job, of course, was to be in charge of a platoon of communication experts. So our job was to provide communication for everybody that needed communication, and you need it over there. We would provide it for 101st Airborne, all the artillery, all the grunts that had to be out in the hills chasing Charlie around. And so the helicopters would fly us out, and we'd set up a place on top of Hill 622, and we'd put up antennas, and we might be there for 5 days only, because they were going to try and take Hill 621. And then they'd get done with it, and they'd come and pick us up with the choppers and take us back to our base camp, and then we'd wait to our next assignment. Oh, we had dogs. We all had dogs. I shouldn't say we all had dogs. I had a dog as Brandy was his name. But he got some kind of a dog disease, and we had to put him away. I felt pretty bad. Lost my dog. The Tet Offensive was really something. That was January 31st of 1968. I was in Pleiku at the time, and all of a sudden, about midnight, the sky just lit up with rockets and mortar fire, and they were coming in like crazy. And we got up, and we were dove into our. No, we didn't have our bunkers then. We just kind of huddled around the sandbag so that we wouldn't get hit by any rockets and mortars. And then the DC-3, which is a Second World War airplane, had these mini guns on there. On each side, these mini guns would shoot 5,000 rounds a minute. It was just unbelievable. And every 5th round coming out of those mini guns was a tracer, which lit up. And they were coming out of there so fast, it was just a steady light. And they called that Puff, the Magic Dragon.
Puff, the magic dragon, lived by the sea and frolicked in the autumn mist in a land called Honolulu.
Well, that was the start of the real war. After that, that's when the Vietcong started coming south, coming down the Ho Chi Minh Trail. The Ho Chi Minh Trail wasn't just one trail, it was dozens of them. So you might bomb one out, they'd take another one. And they carried heavy equipment down. Took it apart, carried it down to South Vietnam and those trails, put it back together to fight with. So they were determined. When you're getting within a couple months of going home, they call it short. And they asked me if I wanted to be pay officer one more time, and I said, no, I'm getting too short. I'm going home next month. It's November of '68. So they got somebody else to take my place, and the chopper got shot down. It was, I'll never forget that. I was in the operations room. This chopper pilot, this Driscoll was his last name, great guy. He was saying we're experiencing severe lateral vibrations. And then all of a sudden it was nothing. And the major and another chopper flew out there and there was nothing left. There was 6, 7 guys on there, all dead. And I had to put all his gear together in a box and send it home to his wife. You just want to make sure that you don't send the wrong things to his wife, you know, so you put this in there and you say, oh, she doesn't want to see this, so you give it to somebody or whatever. That was quite an experience. Battaglio was his name. He and I were pretty good friends. And these were the Vietnam boys, probably 15 to 20 years old. They didn't know whose side they were on. They worked for us during the daytime, and they are always checked on the way in, checked in the morning and checked out in the evening. They didn't know if they were firing the rockets at us at night. They weren't sure. Those rockets were powerful. They'd shoot 1 or 2, and of course our guys would be right on them, and then they'd run like crazy in the night, so you'd never be able to catch them. I don't remember any of them ever caught or shot or anything. I must have been in the convoy going from Pleiku to Kantoon. And they usually dropped some stuff off at Kantoon and then went on up to Dak To was the end of the line for us. Well, there used to be a blacktop road, but there's probably 10% of the blacktop left, so it was lots of ruts, holes. The distance between Pleiku and Dak To was only 25, 30 miles. It took us 2-3 hours. Ooh, 57 Chevrolet. Wow. These are our wash girls. They'd come and they'd get your clothes and you'd pay them. And it was really very cheap. And you could tell the length of time that you were in Vietnam by the uniforms. The more faded they were, the longer you'd been over there. So everybody wanted a faded uniform. That proved that you were a veteran over there.
I've come to talk with you again.
Jackie and Elaine. They were the GOGO girls. They sang perfect English. And then you talked to them, they couldn't speak to you because they didn't know English. But they knew the words to the songs.
And the vision that was planted in my brain.
These are all first and second lieutenants, a few captains, a few warrant officers.
Of silence. In restless dreams I walked alone.
I recognize them all, but I can't remember their names.
South Vietnamese military losses were 200 killed and 798 wounded. Allied forces reported killing 1,431 enemy during that week.
I showed this to my prospective wife as soon as I got back. She wasn't impressed at all.
Police and rock-formed students battled again today in the latest disturbance in a week of disorder. Troubles were triggered by the dismissal of an instructor who belonged to the radical Black Panthers. Finally, Pope Paul says he is deeply concerned because religious indifference has become fashionable, and some Christians even believe God is dead. In a speech in St. Peter's Basilica, the Pope reaffirmed that religion and communism can't be reconciled, although discussion is possible. That completes the 7 o'clock news. Good night.
Oh, here's our water hole. This is interesting. Every day we had to take this truck down to the creek and suck out water. And of course, guess what hung around the water holes was the prostitutes. So everybody wanted to be on water detail. There's our Vietnamese skipper. This was a day where we rented a boat. We're going to go up to this island off of Nha Trang and picnic. And we were waiting for these warrant officers, and we couldn't figure out why they weren't coming and why they weren't coming. And the two warrant officers were late because they were trying to get some girls to come with them, and it took them a little while. And of course they added a little spice to the trip. Then you remember the good times.